Hi everybody, my name is Chloe Waite, and I'm going to talk about the just many issues within video game culture and community and industry. So hopefully you don't get too offended, but I feel I'm pretty versed to talk about it. I am myself a gamer girl, and my sister is a much more accomplished gamer girl. So today I want to talk about sexism, homophobia, and more within video games. And specifically, I want to highlight inaccurate or non existent representation, inaccurate beliefs of video game demographics, and an accepted and fairly unpoliced culture of harassment and abuse online. All these things come together to make a fairly unsafe place for women and minorities, to say the least. We all know that this is an issue because there's so many articles about it, especially on sexism in the industry, but if we talk about these issues, then we can help fix them. All right. To get started, this is not woman. Come on, guys. The over sexualized imagery of women has been a prominent feature in video games for a long time, and it's still persistent today. It's getting better, but it's still a problem. The sexualized imagery of women not only reinforces negative perception, but it also reinforces the belief that video games only exist for straight men because these characters are clearly designed for the male gaze. And not only that, when it comes to outside of like personal, it according to one study, observing sex stereotyped video game characters increased people's tolerance towards sexual harassment in real life. People who had seen the sexualized characters thought that a certain harassment issue was more acceptable or required less punishment. Now, when it comes to groups other than women, the representation is few and far between, and what it does exist is very heavily based in stereotypes. It not only adds to already negative or warped views of different groups, but it also makes people feel more emboldened to harass or target these already targeted groups on and offline. And then members of those groups who see those negative or warped views of themselves in games have to deal with the thought, is this really how people see me? And that can be really harming. So, not only do women characters need to be better, all characters need to be better. Now, the next issue is that there's this belief that only boys play video games, that video games are a male dominated activity drowning in teenage boys. But that's wrong. According to the Washington Post back in 2013, women make up 48% of the gaming population, and women older than 18 outnumber teenage boys. And that's back in 2013. So clearly, women are still half the market, but we have this belief that women aren't really a necessary part of the market to advertise to or to make games that encompass them. And the reason that this exists is because of actual advertising during the 90s that video game companies made to specifically target boys in their advertising. They made it their target market and advertised hard, and it led to the companies and just normal people thinking that only boys played video games. This is according to a really interesting article from Polygon I recommend. According in one quote from that article points out how the Nintendo Entertainment System was targeted towards boys under 10, and then the Super NES 5 years later started targeting boys age 10 to 15. So when companies and players say that video games are for boys, companies did that to themselves, so you played yourself. Alright, and the last issue I want to address in this is the toxicity and harassment in online. Like online communities and online games alike. Abusive language and harassment is very common for any player in an online game, and they feel unavoidable. According to a recent study by the Anti-Defamation League, 74% of people have experienced some form of harassment while playing a game online, and 65% have experienced what they indicated as severe harassment, meaning physical threats, stalking, sustained harassment, all these bad things. Now, most people have just accepted this issue as just the way things are. Often it feels overwhelming and you just want to get through your day, but staying silent inadvertently reinforces this behavior, especially since a majority of this behavior uses extremely charged and offensive language, especially the F slur. This makes women and LGBT plus people feel especially targeted. So, since people are ignoring it and staying silent, toxic players feel emboldened to use this harsh language to attack women, LGBT plus, and other minority players, both in game and through direct messages. This is a prominent issue, according to that, as you can see, according to that ADL study, 53% of people who reported experiencing harassment said they were targeted specifically for their race, religion, ability, gender identity, sexual orientation, or ethnicity. So people are specifically being attacked for who they are and making both the game and the community and whatnot even less accepting place for them, which is what I'm getting to. All these issues add up to create an incredibly unwelcoming and hostile environment for women, LGBT plus, and minorities on and offline. The most prominent issue being online harassment, which people encounter so often. But this issue has been shaped and made worse by the previously discussed issues of just inaccurate representation or non-existent representation, the perception that women or other groups aren't a big part of the video game market, and just the acceptance of harassment and toxicity online with silence as a response. Now, what I think we can do to make things better is call out this harassment, report toxic players, especially if they're using slurs or other derogatory language. Call out the game companies that aren't doing enough. We need to demand positive and diverse representation that isn't just one token character here and there, and demand more effective and reliable systems of reporting players and making sure that they're actually fairly punished for their behavior, because oftentimes they don't stand up. Companies, do better, please. You need to create more effective means of reporting and banning toxic and hateful players. Allocate more resources to reviewing cases of reported accounts. You can listen to your game's community in deciding how to go about this, what is more or less acceptable within common sense. I know I watched a few game developer conferences by a person who worked for League of Legends who created a system that seemed to work well. Now, all of this is just to say that video games should be for everyone, and right now, they don't feel like it. Video game companies need to get out of old sexist ideas, and by marketing only to men, you're losing half the market. If people speak up, change can happen. Thank you for watching. Please don't dox me for bashing on video games. I love them. They're just a little problematic. Thanks.